I'm John Ray, and I'm the lawyer for the victim, Jamie Tessetta, of a murder and her surviving family. Her family sits here with me today. To my left, her brother, and to my left again, her nephew. To my right, her child. We're here because Channel 12 has enabled this man to have a platform, the killer, that is, of Jamie Tessetta and 3 others in the Medford pharmacy back in 2011. This man, David Laffer, has been given a platform to speak about these appalling murders that he committed in horror against these poor innocent people. We're here because that man who committed those murders in cold blood was recently given a platform to speak about what he did, a platform to give him a certain amount of freedom in the prison where he is rotting right now. And that platform was given to him by Channel 12 News in a program that they have just created and will be played this evening on television and streamed worldwide. That platform was given by a reporter for Channel 12 who interviewed Laffer in the prison, and in that interview actually shook the man's hand and allowed him to speak freely about what he had done. Now, what he had done was not a mob hit. It was not something that was made a tit for tat or coming from a gang or a family feud. It was just straightforward, perverse, cold-blooded murder. And what he did is unforgivable. Yet, once he was sentenced to a life in prison with 4 consecutive murder sentences, whereby he would never get out again, he would have been buried in the cold concrete of a prison where he would have virtually become a meaningless existence. But instead, Channel 12, in order to make a program, a show for entertainment, interviewed him and took him from a person of no meaning whatsoever and reinvented him and gave him the freedom, the incorporeal ability to fly over those prison walls and become a figure on the media explaining his killings. And that's what he did. In fact, we know on that show from the previews that have been shown on national television, we know that this man actually said, you should have watched their faces or seen their faces, the faces of the victims, as he shot them. We know that that man harbors inside himself a perverse pleasure in having done that. And he is now, by dint of Channel 12 work, he's been given the opportunity to even experience greater pleasure in watching the victims cringe, the families that survive. And he's been given that by Channel 12. He's been given a red carpet to a certain amount of freedom from prison and having his picture appear and his voice appear on national television outside the prison walls. One of the things that happens to somebody that's sentenced to life in prison is that their entire meaning in life is eliminated. And that's one of the just parts of that punishment, is that they become nothing. They have no value in the outside world. And that's part of the punishment. Channel 12 has just eliminated that punishment and basically commuted this man's sentence to this extent. that he is now a voice on national television. He has now gotten his button for the killing of 4 innocent people in the prison. He's gotten his button. And he will become an important man in the prison because of what has happened through Channel 12. And he will have meaning given back to him as a perverse, dark force that continues to exist, as opposed to somebody who should not have had any existence at all. That's what's occurred here, because of Channel 12's pandering for their money for a show to a disgraceful, disgusting murderer, a pervert, an evil force. And so we're protesting what they're doing, Channel 12. We're asking that Channel 12 not show the creation that they've made, this television show that they've made, and instead that they quash it in respect for the true other victims, the remaining victims of his slaughter. And those victims, some of who sit here with me today. We're asking Channel 12 to have the dignity, the intelligence, and the respect for innocence, and equally to have some disregard, some distaste for someone guilty of this, and pull that show. That's what we're asking for. And so I'm going to now turn over the conference to the victims to speak. Who would like to go first?
I'll go first. I was made aware a few days ago about this interview. I couldn't believe when I heard that this was an interview. I didn't understand who would want to hear from a man that did something like this, so sick and horrific. I did not watch the video clip of the interview. I did read through the article. I was very, very confused when I read the part that David Laffer claimed the media painted him as a monster. I'm not sure what else you would call a man who took the lives of 4 people, 4 innocent people that day, to feed his drug addiction. That sounds like a monster to me, and I'm not sure why he thinks otherwise. This was very traumatizing. I'm beside myself that News 12 would even consider interviewing this man. This is very traumatizing for me and my family. I'm sure for the other families involved. We don't want this to air. There should have never been an interview. This is very insensitive. This is very traumatizing. I don't agree with any of this. I think that he's a monster, and this should have never happened.
All right, thank you, Nick. Nick is the child of Jamie Tessetta. To my left, Danny Tessetta,
Hi.
Jamie's brother.
Hi, my name is Daniel Tessetta, the brother of Jamie Tessetta. My sister was David Laffer's last victim. I am asking News 12, please do not air this piece on News 12. Myself and my family, we do not condone what the news has done to give this killer light, and for my sister's children to hear the voice of the man that took their mother's life. And we are asking you and we are begging you, please do not air this. Do not give this killer a platform to where he can reach millions of people and let them hear about his story. There is no story. He should be in the prison walls and not seen and not heard from ever again. Thank you.
Let me finish it with this. Mr. Laffer will have the murderer's psycho sublime pleasure of inflicting himself once again upon the victims through this interview in Channel 12. And he will take that sublime pleasure and rub it in when you see, if this show is allowed to go forward, when you see the show. We've seen the previews, and in the previews, this man Laffer actually tries to justify himself and explain away what he did. And this is being allowed. It's a perversity of society that these kind of people have the ability somehow, through the commercial quest of the media, in this case Channel 12, that is to say for money, that these people like Laffer should have the platform, the ability to be heard, to speak out, to even become famous. No doubt in prison, while he's in prison, he will have long-standing prison notoriety from this interview that he's given. Why are we giving this to these people? There's no longer a death penalty, but life in prison does and should have a real meaning. And at the very least meaning it should have is that these people like him and he himself are meaningless. Their voice should not be heard. We plead, we beg Channel 12 not to allow this travesty to go forward, in the name of decency and for the love of God. Thank you.